Welcome, welcome. We are excited to be here. It's Saturday afternoon, August 27th, and we're celebrating. We're celebrating a few things, and we're being grateful. We're kind of doing several things here. The first thing we're celebrating is we have 20,000 viewers on YouTube, and that's exciting for us. Just a mark of that we're on our way as to where we want to be. And we think most of those YouTube viewers are from you all sharing and telling one another. I had an email from a customer a couple days ago, and she said she was new to silhouette patterns. She was at I won't say which store she was at, but she was looking through patterns, and a couple ladies were there and just nonstop, silhouette patterns, you got to check out silhouette patterns. And so she was actually looking at another company's pattern catalog. And so sure enough, she looked us up and she said she just couldn't get enough of all of the webcasts, the previous webcasts. So they are for you. They are to help educate you. As far as we are concerned, we need and want an educated consumer so that we can get to higher levels of learning. And it's kind of exciting as we take notches up, and you can see we can have lots more fun with patterns. We can do more complex things. We can really, it's what I love about sewing. Sewing can be very simplistic, as simple as sewing corners or sewing straight seams, and it can get more complex as we enter into patterns in 3D and dimension and all those other things. So it really leaves a lot of room for growth, and our goal of these webcasts is to help all of us grow and get better and smarter. So we thank you for sharing. And in turn, you're helping us, because we have decided that the good cause that we're contributing funds to today is for the officers who were slain here in Dallas, Texas. We live in Dallas, Texas. We feel this is not our immediate family, but we feel it. I've been down to the memorial. It's a great sense of loss. It's a very tragic situation. And for people who gave so selflessly to us, for them to have lost is just really a shame. So for us to be able to contribute to that is a great honor, and we're excited that you all group together with us in contributing. And we ask that you give what you can. Don't make this stressful for you, for your family, but if you can and appreciate the webcast, then that's when we ask. And you can go to the very front page, and it's right there. It says Assist the Officer, Dallas, and you can click on that. There's a link directly to the site, to the officers, where you can contribute. You don't have to contribute to us. I've gotten several emails of people who wanted to contribute directly, and they said, well, we want to give you credit. You don't need to give us credit. We don't need credit. It's certainly not about that. It's really about thanking them, remembering them, and honoring their families. So we're very honored and excited to be here today. And when we put out the query as to what you all wanted to do, you wanted to have Nicky's top. And I'm going to tell you something. It was pretty much unanimous. There wasn't like a whole bunch of others. So Nicky's top, number 215, is the one we're going to do. And like I said, this is really fun for me. The reason it's fun for me is because I've made several others in practice, just to make sure I could read my own guide sheets. I do write the guide sheets, but you write them and then you move on, and so sometimes I have to go back and look at them. And sometimes when you all ask me about the guide sheets and I answer a question, you say it's not like the guides. That's just because I don't remember. We do have 2 hours. We won't use the 2 hours unless I'm just really pokey today, but I do want to give a few minutes to just clear questions off of your heads. I have cut out the top. This is a hot pink cotton knit that I'm using. And it's in the cotton knit section. There's a lot of new fabrics. The stripe that I have on is a new fabric. We have it in lots of different colors. So the fabrics are available if you decide you want them, but I'm going to say to you that usually any rayon, any cotton, anything light, poly, that will gather nicely, just a lightweight knit is what you want to use. And there's lots of variables, lots of different colors you can use, lots of prints. So I love this top. I think it looks good on every figure out there. I've lengthened the one I have on because I'm wearing it with leggings, but it's really a fun, simple top to do. And my hope is that if you watch this, it'll just give you the confidence that you can sit down and say, I can do this. Or I know some of you are sewing along with us, so that's the good news. All right, so let's just start with a few questions. Again, really just to clear them off. The goal isn't to go deep into other subjects or deep into fitting or anything, but just to kind of clear your heads so that we can all come together and focus on learning this particular top. All right, anything that comes to mind? Okay. All right, I made the top, and the neckline is very is way too low. How can I fix that? There's a couple things you want to look at. So I've got the top on, and the neckline, you know, just a few pattern facts or body facts, whichever you want to call them. Base the neck to bust is 12 inches. Now that doesn't matter if you're 5 feet tall or 6 feet tall. It's incredibly, well, I mean, there's a little bit of variance, but you'll be really surprised if I measured a whole room full of women, all of different heights, how similar that top part is. It's called a newscaster effect, where if somebody's sitting down, you actually can't see how tall they are. So the bust point is the same as the sweater set. It's the same as all the knit bodies. So if the neckline is too low, which I don't understand how that really can be, but if it is, just take and remember that these two straps, those two pieces, I'm going to actually call them by name so that we don't get confused. It's called the center front wrap, that piece, and that is actually piece number 2. And then there's piece number 3, it's called the side front wrap. Those two make up the top of the garment, and they go right through the armhole. So what you could do is take a lengthen or shorten line there. You could shorten those pieces, those two pieces, and then redraw the armhole back on to keep the armhole exactly where it was. That would pull up the neckline, and that would pull the crossing. But be careful. Quickly, easily, you could tighten around the circumference, but that wouldn't bring the neckline up. So I have not seen the top on anyone in a workshop where it was too low, so I don't get how it's too low. I'm not doubting you, I just it's not logical to me how it could be too low, the way I drafted it and the way I did it. I could have missed something, obviously I did, but if you want to just look at that and go through those two pieces and then of course redraw the armhole, you'll be in good shape. Alright, I read the instructions and it shows two pieces crossing over in the armhole, but it doesn't say how much to cross them over. Hi Peggy. Oh, is this two questions? Okay, I'm sorry. It does say how much to cross them over. It crosses them all the way over to the side seam if you continue to read. The pieces have to end in the side seam. So those questions will be answered as we go along and sew. If this is a sewing question, hold on. If we don't answer it, you can ask it, but we're going to answer all those sewing questions as we go along. Well, let's not kind of project ahead and then look at problems. Hi Peggy. Hi everybody. On Nicky's top we are told to sew down the center pieces in a V shape in 3 places. The top part is left hanging. Is that correct? It is left hanging. On the inside at the very top, the top part is left hanging. Correct. And on the original it was actually done like that too. There's no need to stitch it down. It will hold in place because all the other stitching will leave it there. Okay. Are we good? Alright, let's start sewing. Does that sound fun? Are you guys sewing? If you are, let me know. Let me know if I'm sewing slower than you or faster than you. I'm following exactly by the guides. Now some of these pieces, there's 5 pieces. There's one is the front. That's the little, here I'll show them to you. That's kind of the little scoopy part. That's this little part right here. And that's got your different cup sizes in it. And then 2 and 3 are the top pieces that come through that make up the top of the garment. And then 4, I don't have my numbers here. This is the back. That's probably 4, and 5 being the sleeve. And that's it. So there's only 5 pieces. I always say can't get that hard if there's only 5 pieces, right? So the very first thing I'm going to do is stitch the French darts. Because I'm dealing with a fabric that's the same color on both sides, I have a tendency to put a pin in the right side just so that I don't sew 2 of the same side. As we progress on, I'll kind of explain that and do that. This is just the French dart in the front. I had another request that somebody asked me if I would do the whole entire construction on a sewing machine, so I am going to do that. I'm not going to use a serger. This is a knit garment. We don't really need a serger. It makes it kind of pretty on the inside, but I don't need a serger at all. And again, you guys, we've got several guys back here, so one is watching camera and one is watching your questions that are coming in. So as I'm going along, if you want to see something or if you have a question, that's the whole advantage of being live. Just let me know. I am also using, this is a hot pink fabric. I'm using 2 different color threads. My light color thread I'm using on the top so that we could tell the regular thread, and then I'm using a dark color on the bottom for my bobbin. So when we look at it, we can kind of tell which one's which. and which direction we're sewing. This is all for you to be able to see. I'll actually have to remake the top because I love this color and I held off this color for the webcast. And then I thought to myself, well gosh, I'm not going to be able to wear it with all those colors. I'm going to have to remake it. So that's okay. Alright, so I've got 2 French darts. And I talked, so if you guys were doing French darts, you should have already been there by now. I don't tie my ends on my French darts. I leave them. There's no stress there. Maybe just for y'all today I'll tie them. How's that? Don't backstitch the French dart because it's too much bulk. If you did notice, I started at the tip and I stitched to the bottom, and that way you can get a really nice smooth edge along there. You just start right there and come back in. If you need to mark the tips, a lot of times I'll mark them with a pin, and that way it's quick and easy to mark and then move on. I am doing a straight stitch and I'm using a 3.0 for my stitch length. Great question. Okay, so that's done. The next part on my guide sheet goes to these 2 front pieces, and I don't think it matters which one you do. When I cut them out, there's these little notches on the pattern, and I went ahead and I cut those notches so that I could sew in the right place. Now keep in mind, this is where I said there's 2 pieces, the right sides are together, and it's not that I can't tell the right side from the wrong side. I just think that when you mark them, put a pin on the right side, it's just a little faster and you don't need to really think it through. So that's the only goal here in doing this. So what you do with these 2 pieces is you put right sides together, and you're going to stitch just between these little markings right here. So I've clipped to those markings, and you're just going to stitch right in between those 2 little places. So I'll tell you what I'm doing, I'll do it, and then I'll show you what I'm doing. I do backstitch on this because it's internal, and then I clip my threads all the way to the point. When I did cut this out and I made these little clips, I made them narrower than they needed to be. So now once I've sewn those clips, I make them all the way to actually the stitch line, rather than, you know, they may not be deep enough. I don't try to go exactly the depth they should be. So after I stitch them, I have a tendency to go a little bit deeper. They're going to become pivot points, and I'll show you what you're going to do with them and why you want to have them right on. So I'm going to backstitch here in the beginning because again this is internal, and then I'm going to stitch to the end. And question is, go ahead. 3 questions, okay. How much did you lengthen the top you have on, and how did you do that? Straight down on one side. I lengthened it 6 inches because that was enough to go over my leggings. And no, I curve it out. I always curve it out because my hips are bigger than my waist. So I just put my French curve on the side seam, especially the back, and curve it, and I do the same thing on the front. I curve it into the French dart. What type of knot did you use, and will it hold up with washing? I just tied it to, what kind of knot is that? Come on, Boy Scout. Just a double knot? What is that? Like if you just tie the strings, tie them again, and I cut them. Will it hold up after washing? Yeah, there's no stress on the bus point. It's not like we're going to, you know, rappel down the mountain and we need it to save our lives or anything dramatic like that. It's pretty straightforward and simple. The dart point is too high for me. How do I lower it? Good question. This is a French dart, so all you do is stop stitching sooner. The good reason to make a muslin, again, the base of this is 195. So if it's going to be wrong for you, it's probably wrong for you on pretty much all the patterns that we do. So what you want to do is just not cut all the way up the dart when you're cutting it out, because like I'm using a C cup, and when I go to cut it out, I'm almost to all the way to the point. So don't cut all that out. Like back it up a little bit so that if you sew the dart and it's too high, you can just literally back up the stitching and you'll still have fabric to be able to do it on. If you cut the dart up too high, you may not be able to back it up, so just kind of be careful of that. I'm turning these 2 pieces I just sewed, I'm turning them to the wrong side, and because it's a cotton and because it's a knit, it's kind of curling, so I'm just going to put the edges together to line them up, and every little while I'm going to put some pins. I want those pins to be horizontal so that I can see them as I'm putting the layers together, and you'll see it later when I go to sew. Don't put them vertical. along with the raw edge. You want to put them horizontal. Perpendicular, I'm sorry. You want to put them horizontal to the fabric, or um, perpendicular. No, not the square knot. We're on a different part. Yeah, the Boy Scouts came to help us. Okay, will a Teflon foot help with knit fabrics or just a regular foot? I use a Teflon foot all the time. I know you use the Teflon foot all the time. Yeah, I use it all the time because it's Teflon foot. It slides. It helps everything slide, not just knits, not just leather. It helps everything slide. Needles, I'm just at a regular 70-10. My regular needles, we sell them on the website. That's all I ever use. I don't know the last time I replaced this needle, to be quite honest. I just go until it breaks, and once it breaks I put in a new one. So you can see that needles aren't a big expense in my hours of sewing. Alright, so again, all I'm doing is I'm taking time to make sure these edges are straight, because otherwise when it comes to later I'll have to do it at some point. So to me, I might as well do it now. So where I've sewed, this is where I've turned it inside out. You can see there's one little thing there and one little thing there. This little section is all I've sewed. I've turned it to the right side. So what this is this is going to be my neck edge, is what it is. So I've done the one, and I'm going to do the other one. And if you have a little, kid that hangs around when you sew, or a little grandchild or something, they would have fun kind of turning these inside out, or maybe they wouldn't. I guess I shouldn't suppose that. But it's just needs to be turned inside out. Wrong sides together here are what we're doing. And we're going to put the pins in there to keep it all even. The good news is here today we have beautiful weather. It's just absolutely beautiful outside. And I know in other places of the country it's not that way, so we're especially happy here. Alright, question? Off topic? Off top? That's kind of cute. That's a pun. Off topic. That's kind of funny. What is the sleeve length of the top you're wearing? I followed the pattern when I made the top, and the sleeves are below my wrist. Much longer than what you're wearing. Well, I've got mine pulled up. You might not be able to see that. I just do a regular long sleeve and then I pull them up. So I really like a 3/4 sleeve, but when I was in high school, one of the reasons I sewed was I was the gangly weird kid who couldn't get any clothes to be long enough. Everything was too short, so I would never wear a 3/4 sleeve. While I have mentally gotten over that, what I notice about myself is I still really like a long sleeve, like a sleeve that's kind of too long. Not too long, but that's long. But you can shorten that. You can just take it up or put it down, either way. Alright, so now I'm starting on the next piece. I'm putting pins in the right side, again, because I don't want to think this through. I simply want to do it and make it easy. And then I've got the notches again. So I'm going to put it right sides together and just sew in front of these notches. Pretty simple to do. Back stitching at the beginning, back stitching at the end, turning them to the right side. And I'm actually making, these are the gathers that go across the front. And I clip those threads, and I'm good to go. Everybody got this? You're probably doing it way faster than I am. You tell me to hurry up. The key is you've got a clip to those places you cut, but they're all marked on the pattern if you just follow the pattern. The very ends, you pull those out and then pin the rest of this portion. I personally love working with knits. I just think they are the best. I really, really enjoy them. Especially with them right now being so popular. This particular stretch is two-way. It has direction in both ways, Whenever you're dealing with a knit like that, you can sometimes go to a smaller size, just depending on how, you know, much negative ease you want to use in your blouse, in your top, I guess. It's not really a blouse. All right. So these little ends right here just curl, curl, curl. So that's where a pin is really helpful there. And you all thought I'm not a pinner, huh? Okay, one more. All right. What's the thickness of the fabric I'm using? The one I have on, it's probably exactly the same actually. Yeah, it's like the same as the top I have on. These cotton knits are just lovely. We got them in a little while ago and they're really lovely. The top I have on, it's being called a European polyester. There was 4 colors. I put them up on the site yesterday, or we got them up on the site yesterday. It's just amazing. They just, I don't like polyester. Y'all know I don't like polyester, but I'm going to tell you I love these fabrics. They feel like cotton. They're so soft, and I purposely made it up and wore it because I wanted to feel like, if, you know, a lot of times polyester on me, I just sweat to death, and I didn't. There's no sweating at all. It's amazing. I don't know what they're doing to poly, but it's just not the old poly. And the best thing we can do is recognize that the new poly is not like the old poly. It's good stuff. What stitch length are you using? 3.0. 3.0 stitch length. Regular straight stitch, nothing fancy, nothing crooked, nothing, just a straight stitch. Alright, one little section and then we'll move to the next part. What's the next part? You guys can, I'll follow you as my guide sheet. Alright, so once we've got that done, that's the most time the whole top will take. And I didn't have to sit and straighten those, but I'm going to tell you, you got to do it at some point. So I think it's better to just do it right then, and then it's done, and then your top can just go together the rest of the way. Okay, so again, what you want to do when you're constructing these, or when the whole reason I do this, is you don't want to get 2 of these going the same way, because one is for one side, it's your armhole, and one is for the other side. So you got to make sure that you have, you know, a right and a left, bottom line. Any other questions? Okay, when using fabric that would require a lining, how would you tackle this with a top and a skirt like Susie's skirt? I also don't like slips. Well, I would just do an underlining. I would do a knit underlining and just sew the garment as one. If it needs a lining, if you're doing a knit that's a sheer, then just sew it as one. And when you're handling all this, just put it inside and just literally handle the 2 layers as one. I think that's the way I would do it. This top though, I would make it first, because if you notice, all of these pieces are double. So the whole entire front of this top is double, and then it's got the piece that comes underneath. So I'm not sure that it would need that, but just, I'm going to assume you know it needs that, and that's what I would do. When you backstitch, you just go a little bit backward. When you backstitch, what does it say? Do you just go a little and not forward again? No, when I backstitch, I go back and then I go forward. It depends. In the beginning, when I'm starting, I go forward, I go back, and then I go forward again. And then at the end, I just go back. So I guess it's different at the beginning and at the end. Do you ever use woolly nylon in the bobbin for sewing knits? Sandra Betsina recommends this. I would not, personally. You guys, that's not a fair question. Come on. No, I don't. I would ask why she recommends it. I would, you know, you guys got to think about why. Okay. Oh, one more. Okay, just made Stephanie's blouse. What a great pattern. That was Stephanie. That's because of Stephanie. It is a great pattern. But I copied it off a blouse that Stephanie gave to us, donated to us. Made a size 2, but my waist is a little 2 inches tight, do I just add 4 inches and do all the seams? Yeah, I mean, figure out how much you need, divide it between all the seams, and then give yourself that much more. Okay? 1/4 of an inch, yes. Yeah. Just use all the seams. I think the question really is, do I use one seam or all the seams? The question is, the answer is you want to go to all the seams. You want to have it equally, circumference is equally distributed. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two pieces and I'm going to sew them together. So I'm actually constructing, and you want to make sure you've got the top up, and so they go like that. And I will say I love this table for this reason, because it's amazing how wonderful this table is and how I can lay things out and I can make them just look just like the little picture over here. Okay, and that's comfortable for me, because I can remember, yeah, I remember I drew that. Okay, so you want to align them as to how they go, and you want to make sure they make sense. So this is piece number, I forgot my numbers. Sorry, let me look down here. This is piece number 2 here, and 3 is the armhole. So 2 is in the middle, 3 is armhole. 2 is what's going to make the neck edge. And so what I'm going to do is take these two and sew from the top portion. So you're actually sewing through 4 layers, and I'm going all the way to the notch, and obviously those notches should be at the same place. And this is just all being done on the sewing machine. I'm not serging this, because remember, I would serge it normally though, but again, knits are not going to ravel, so there's no reason you need a serger. Serger is just cosmetic. And the good news is my pins are all perpendicular, so they're very easy to take those pins out as I sew. If they were vertical to the fabric, then I could, mess something up, but it's not. I'm going to kind of just pull these, not even pull them, but I'm going to line them up. I'm going to look ahead and line them up and keep this taut to where this is a 1-to-1. And go. What size is your table? It's the 18 by 24. It's on the website. It's the big table. I think we only sell one size sewing table, so it's the one that it is. Now when I get to this point, because there's in my mind when I stitch, there's 2 types of stitching, and one is an overstitch. So when I'm sewing a seam on a garment, something else is going to come along and overstitch it. For instance, at this neck edge here, something's going to come and overstitch it, so I don't backstitch there. But at this point, there's nothing to come along and overstitch it, so I would just backstitch that, just a few stitches, so that and clip your threads. That's going to be the best way to do it, and I know it's secure and I don't have to worry about it coming undone. What size extension table is Peggy sewing on? That was the table. It's on the site. We only have the one size. It's good. It's the large one. I use your recommendation to use 3mm stitch length. I find them break on my garments. I did 2 rows on my yoga pant hems. Same thing. Stitch lines rippled in multiple places. What do I do wrong? I don't know. I mean, it's probably too... I don't know the answer to that. I'm telling you that I'm using 2. I'm using 3.0. If the stitches are breaking, then you are over stretching the garment to put it on. You shouldn't have that much pull on those stitches. I don't know. I mean, it could be your machine. There's too many variables for me to have answers for that, and I apologize, but I don't know. Alright, so again, I'm going to start at the shoulder seam. I'm doing the same thing, I'm just doing it in the same place on both sides. Question is, would this pattern work well with an ITY knit? Absolutely it would. Yeah, ITY knits are great for this. They're thin, they're dense. Yeah. I think the original top that I saw in the store was an ITY. I think that's the fun for me though of making these tops, because or making the patterns or whatever, because ITYs are great and a lot of people love ITYs, and then there's people who don't. But this way you can choose your fabric and make exactly what you want it to be. Alright, so again I just sewed those together and I backstitched, and I'm going to take away all my pins. I actually usually take away my pins as I'm sewing, but I was reading questions so I didn't. Okay, so when that opens up you see that that's my top of my top. That's my armhole and that's my neck edge. Alright, so our next step now is to do shoulder seams. So I'm going to take this vertical seam that I just did, I've got both of them, and I'm pushing them toward the center of the garment. Vertical seams pressed to the center. I'm going to get my back and I'm going to sew the shoulder seam. When you sew the shoulder seam, you're going to align the edge of the shoulder seam, because when I get to the neck edge there's going to be 5/8 width greater. So I'm going to lay that down and sew the shoulder seam. This is just a straight line, but I want to make sure I have extra on the neckline edge. It should be 5/8 of an inch extra. I'm going to show you why, because we'll finish the neck edge. When do you have to reduce pressure? Do you have to reduce pressure foot on your machine? I don't. I don't ever change the pressure on my machine, so I'm going to say no. Now see here, this original seam here that I did when I sewed the pieces 2 and 3 together, where I didn't backstitch and I said later it would be overstitched, exactly the case. So now I clip that thread because I've overstitched it this way, and so this is not going to come undone. It's got another thread that's going to hold it in place. This one now from the armhole will be overstitched because it's going to have the sleeve come in. So I leave it long for now. I don't tie it. It'll have another one. This one going into the neckline, it's going to be overstitched too, so I'll worry about it later on. I only backstitch when it's never going to be overstitched throughout the process of making that garment. So this is a case now where I'm overstitching that one. What are your thoughts on pressing as you sew? Well, I think you should press as you sew, but I don't have anything. You want to minimize where you're pressing. So because I don't have anything that's messing up anything else at this point, I don't need to press after every single time, because pressing after every single time takes a lot of time. So I'm going to press. I've got the iron going, but I'm only going to press when I need to, when it goes to involve another step that it needs pressing beforehand. I mean, just hang on and watch and you'll see, and I'll explain when I get there. Did you select the knit fabric option on the Viking? I did not. My Viking says woven medium. Don't tell Viking this, okay? I'll get in big trouble with Viking, okay? Because, look, you know, how do I say this without getting in trouble? I think that we have a lot of... Why don't I just leave the answer at no? No, I don't. Okay? Let's just leave it there. Put on the political hat. There we go. Could the back edge be finished before sewing the shoulder seams? I'm going to assume you mean the back neck edge. No, it cannot, because I'm going to show you how I'm going to finish it. Why don't you wait till I get there, okay? No, because this is a really cool way to finish this neck edge. It's a very industrial way that they do this, and so I wanted to incorporate it onto this shirt, and I did. My goal when I do patterns, you guys, is to give you different finishes at different tops, so that we can have like a variety of different finishes we use. And I think that's a positive, because it'll increase our skill levels. We'll have more options as to why we do what we do. Okay, so I did those shoulder seams, and what I want you to see here is that's my extra seam allowance. I finish off the neck edge now, and the way it's finished off is it folds in and then it folds in again. It's the next step on the guide sheet. I'm actually going in order. How about that? But you're going to see that in just a second. I'll show it to you. Where this is sticking over right here, see, the front edge is finished. That's folded. But you're going to take this edge here and you're going to fold it a quarter, and then you're going to fold it 3/8, and you're going to stitch it down. And it's a beautiful little finish to the neck edge. It looks incredibly professional, if that's a fair word. And so you don't want to do that before you sew the shoulder seam, or else you'll have a little ridge here. This softens that, you know, the connection between the two. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do now. Could Could the back, yeah, we just answered that. Could the back edge be finished? Yeah, we finished. We did that. Now, if I were serging, typically this seam, the shoulder seam, would be finished, but again, it does not have to be. So with this, where I finish stitching, I'm going to get rid of that thread because there's no tension on it. I don't need it. And I'm going to curl this down 5/8 of an inch, but I'm going to tuck under 1/4 of an inch before I start sewing. And it's just managing the knit and managing to hold it all as I'm doing it. I'm trying to get my fingers out of the way so y'all can see, but I think I'm just going to have to, what I'll do is just sew a portion of it, because I've got to take the top apart anyway, and then I'll just show you so that you can see. It's very easy to do. Or, you know, if you don't need to, you may not need to see it. You may get what, the negative of not having people here is I don't understand. I don't know if you understand it or not. If you don't understand it, I guess you should ask. So sometimes I think I go to too much extent to make sure you understand when it's a simple process. I'm stitching, it's called edge stitching. I'm stitching on the very edge there. Is the seam connecting the front neck edge and the side piece finger pressed open before sewing the shoulder seam? No, it's not finger pressed open. I said it, you maybe missed it, I'll say it again. Those seams go to the center. You only open seams not in knits. In knits they all go to one edge because typically you would serge them. So because there's one seam, it's not really a seam you can press open, all those seams are going to come to the center. That's actually a pattern making rule, and I think that because I know pattern making, I don't recognize that maybe some of you don't understand that seams go to the center. When you're sewing, when you're, you know, either way. Alright, so do y'all need to see this? I'm gonna, how much of a delay do we have? 30 seconds? Alright, maybe I'll just show them. Can they see it? So it's again, I'm going to get rid of these threads. This is such a pretty neck edge that I just want you all to see it. I mean, I want you to understand how it's done. I could do this on any top. The tops we only have a 3/8 inch seam allowance, but you could just add another 1/4 inch seam allowance and then do this on the top. There's not any reason to do it if you don't need to. If you're doing front and back, there's no need to, but where it's a finished neck edge in the front and unfinished in the back, that's where the two have to blend, and this is a great way to blend them. Which Viking machine are you using? I'm using the Designer Topaz 50. Alright, so I'm going to come in here and finish this. And then again, because this is internal and there's not another stitch that's going to cross this, I would backstitch here. Now again, I did this in a different color thread so that we could see it. And there's the neck edge. It's just pretty. And you can see where it just goes right into the front, and it's a real smooth transition. Are you sewing the neck edge from the wrong side of the garment? Yes, I am. Because I'm sewing right on the edge of the curve. There's two folds of 1/4 inch and then 3/8, and I'm stitching right on the edge of that. You wouldn't sew from the right side. You wouldn't be able to sew where you're going. From the right side, I mean, it's going to look really good because you're going to sew the straight amount all the way across. Now, typically what I would do, because I'm finished the neck edge, I would come along with my label, and I would put my label right there. I'm not going to sew a label in because I have to take this apart to redo it. There's no reason to put the label in because I know it's going to come apart, but I love a label. I've just started doing it in the last, I don't know, year or so. I love a label. I think for me, it makes me forget that I made it. And you know, I don't know. That's pretty wacky, but I really like a label. Okay, so here you are. There's the body together. The next step is we're going to put this little front piece underneath. This was piece number 1. It's the piece we sewed the French darts on. And so I'm actually going to lay that down on my table again. I love my table because I notice when sewers sew, they sew a lot of stuff in their lap. It's pretty hard sometimes to put all this stuff in the lap. Now piece number 3 is part of the armhole, and it's going to overlap to this little section right there. And the overlap amount is 3/8 of an inch on both sides. So I'm just going to overlap that amount. I'm going to bring it under the sewing machine and baste it in place. Will you show section 2 and 3 sewn together close? Sure. Section 2 and 3 sewn together close. Okay, this is section 2, this is number 3, and there it is down to that portion. What do you want me to do? Like that? Do you want to see the inside? There's the inside. The seam is pointed toward center front. All the seams are. Typically, like I said, if I serged, I would have serged that, but there's no reason not to. It won't fray or anything. And they go all the way down to that little portion. Okay, the portion I just did is I'm bringing in now the little piece number 1 underneath, so I overlap that. Just 3/8 on both sides, 3/8 to this side, 3/8 to that side, and I just stitch them together. So that makes the whole entire armhole. So now let's go back when I said earlier, if you need to shorten this neckline, go through here and shorten these pieces. But you need to make darn sure you really, really need that, because that makes me nervous that you need it. But then just redraw the armhole size. You can take a tuck through here, but whatever you took out of the armhole, just draw it down lower. Okay, so that the armhole will still be the right size. Okay? Why are you taking the top apart? Because I'm sewing it for you guys with contrasting thread, with one color bobbin, not serging, and I like my tops to be this matching thread, and I would probably feel uncomfortable wearing them knowing, I don't know, I would. That's why I'm going to take the top. I want the top, but I don't want it with all those different color things in there. Is that all right? Years ago I would have left it probably, but I've gotten much more persnickety in my work acceptance levels. I had the thread picked out. It's a hot pink. It matches identical. It matches perfectly, so that when you come in and do all that top stitching, it's going to blend. You'll never see it, where now I'm going to have white top stitching and black on the bottom. But again, in the past I've done this to where I could wear the top and then you all go, we can't say, why don't you use a contrasting thread? Well, because now I use a contrasting thread, I have to take the silly thing apart. But I'm going to take this. Can I see the junction of the back and neck? Close up. Yes, there it is. Okay, so this is just rolled. This is a little rolled edge here. There's the shoulder. It rolls over to this side, and there's that side. Backstitch here, backstitch in both places. Okay? We good? Okay, so where I didn't do is I didn't do the other armhole. So where the piece is, we're in step number, it's called complete front. And it's in the second column, the bottom of the second column. So you're basically completing the armhole size, and you're doing that by overlapping the two pieces, and there should be 3/8 on each side of the overlap, and then just stitch it on the machine. Alright girls, are we having fun yet? Are you ahead of me? I want to know if anybody's ahead of me. I'm sure you are. I shouldn't ask that. Okay, and that's just a little baste stitch. I mean, I don't turn my machine literally to baste. I just stitch that. So now we've actually got the front on. If you notice, if I hold it up, we've actually got the front on. It's just kind of sagging in place. Peggy, just to let you know, I can't see the contrasting thread anyway. You should just leave it and live a little. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. You can't see the contrasting thread? Alright, next time we'll do neon yellow, it was suggested. Alright kids, I think it's wine break time. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It is hard to see the thread. Okay, I think when you see close-ups though, you can see thread, can't you? Like, yeah, you can see that better. You wouldn't be able to see that if it was pink on pink. You know, there'd be no vision of that at all. So it gives you some more, you know, with our webcast, and you know, we're limited as to what we can do, but that's cool. We're good. Okay, so now the next step is, please explain why the 3/8 inch overlap again. It's in the guide sheets, you guys. It's in the guide sheet. Yeah, it's in the guide sheets. Okay, so we're jumping up to the third column now. We're going to, it says complete the front. Yay, complete the front. Step number 2. All right, and we're going to start weaving these little fronts. We've got this mess of a front. We're going to start weaving it. I'm going to put it down because I think the camera can get it easiest down. Yes, yes. All right, and that shoulder seam, I'm going to kind of straighten that out. And you're going to follow the picture. And the picture is extremely accurate. Does the top edge of front piece get finished? It's already finished. It's a fold. Everything gets finished. But you guys got to hold on. We're not there yet. All right, but I guess we were there. That's not true. Yes, it gets finished. It's already finished. Okay, so I'm going to take this, and this one goes over this one, under this one, and to the side. I guess it doesn't have to. You could actually braid them however you want to braid them. This one goes under this one, over that one, and to the side, and that's it. It's that complex. One goes over and under, and one goes under and over. Or you could do over and under and over. Or you could do over and over and under and under. It's your top. But I'm suggesting you do just like that picture, which is over and under and over. All right? Say that times. Okay, at this point, the guide sheet says to pin them to the side. You don't really need to do that. You just need to make sure that the front part is woven. The only reason we did that in the photo was to just kind of so you could see where it attaches to and how it attaches. But what you're going to do right now is after you've done the braiding, you're going to come in now and connect the bottom of the two pieces. All right, so these two pieces, for instance, where I did all this pinning, remember I would have had to straighten it out now, they go together. So I'm going to put right sides together, and I'm going to sew up to where I didn't sew, the rest. I'm going to sew the bottom portion. So you just take the rest of what was not attached together, and you're going to attach 1 to 2 and 2 to 1. And I'm going to start at the bottom. It doesn't matter where you start. But the reason I said I'm going to start here is because what you want to do again is look ahead to where the clips are. These are sewing the bottom of the clips now, where we had only sewn the top of the clips. But you have to do the braiding before you can sew this portion together, so now you're going to sew this portion together. Make sure the clips are even, so just kind of stretch to fit. Mine is exactly even. There's no stretching necessary, but sometimes if we don't cut and sew just accurately, there'll be little indiscrepancies. So make sure you kind of fix those in your sewing. They're little, they're not major. Okay, remember when I sew to this portion that's been cut, it's internal, so I'm going to backstitch again. Yes. Does the top edge of front piece gets finishing? Yeah, we answered that. It's on a fold. They mean the piece number 1, the bottom piece of the top front. No, it doesn't get finished. It's tucked behind piece number 2. Oh, I'm sorry, piece number 1. You're right. Whoever answered it, yeah, the little scoopy part. You're talking about piece number 1. Does it get finished? No, it does not. You could finish it, but, no, it doesn't need to be finished. I gotcha. Thank you for helping me out here. Okay, so you can see that the first one's done, and those are going to go over there. And now I'm going to do the second one so that they stay. Basically, it's going to keep this crisscrossed portion locked and secured in because it has to all go between the marks. So I'm going to do these right sides together and sew the same way. Nothing needs to be lined up yet. The lining up is kind of a overkill. I did it on the guide sheet, but it was just kind of to give you a sense of where you were at. Alright, so I start there at the bottom, taking out my pins. Again, this is why your pins, you want them to be perpendicular so you can clearly see where they are. Especially I do it because I'm typically serging this part, and I want to make darn sure I don't get any pins in my serger. That's not a good thing. The serger will eat them and spit them up. Alright, once we get the front together, now that we've done this portion, and again I'm going to backstitch here. I can come in, I can clip those threads. and show you now to align it all, because it's actually going to start looking like a top now. Look at this. Isn't that cool? So see, I have this part done. Probably kind of looks like a big mess, but just keep going. I promise you guys, it fits well, it looks well. Everyone's going to have a Nicky's top, and we're all going to meet together with Nicky's top on. Okay, now these two pieces that I've got, see the middle portion is all secured. And I've backstitched everywhere, so nothing's going to come undone, nothing's going to go wrong. There are notches on the side of the pattern. I've made the top enough time, I'm going to tell you where the notches are. I didn't notch it, but there are notches that tell you where this part goes to, where this part goes to, and that holds the neck in place. So I think sometimes if this neck is gapping, it's because this is too high, you know, but this cross is only like 4 or 5 inches down from the base hole in my neck, so I don't see how that can be too low, but I'm not going to argue a point. I'm just trying to in my head wrap around that. So the French dart comes up here on the side. That is where the bottom, again, this is piece number 2 and this is piece number 3. So piece number 3 barely comes over the French dart. It just comes to a seam allowance amount below the French dart, and then you just work it up. It's not gathered on the side. It's not any of those things. The seam you just stitched, those seams would go down so that you know how to put them. You don't open those seams up. Remember, it's a knit, so you're not going to open seams and press them, and that catches there at the side. So I've done the top. I would not stitch this down. If I were you first time making the top, I would go ahead and put those in place. I might baste them down. I take that back, because you just want to make sure they don't need to go higher or lower. They could go higher or lower. You can adjust them a little bit. But where they are designed to go is you're going to start at the French dart and go up. And that's where the notches are. And I'm going to just kind of baste this in place, because I want to do something else with where I'm showing you. So we're just going to baste that side seam in place. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Have you sewn this pattern using different colors for the different pieces? I haven't, and I'll tell you why. I think that this is such a focus that it's enough of a focus. To start doing different colors, to me, it's like too much. So it's just not something I would go for, but you know, you guys know I always say this. It's your top. You get to do whatever you want. And I sincerely mean that. If you want it to look bad, hey, I'm okay with that. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, I'm sure you guys look, there's times, I remember, I'll never forget, Kelsey, if you're watching, Kelsey did pattern number 425, Craig's blouse. And she said to me, she emailed me, and she said, what do you think if I do it in a stripe? I said, I think it'll look terrible. And so she did it in a stripe. It's like my favorite. So I've definitely been wrong before, and I know I'll be wrong again. So prove me wrong and send me a picture. Post it on Facebook. I like the fabric used for the pattern cover, but I would have thought it was too busy a fabric. Do I need to worry about this for Nicky's top? I would agree with you. You know, the one I did on the webcast, I used that border print. Now, I didn't use the border print in the top, but it was a busy print also, and I love it. And I did it because of the original that I had done on the cover, because I like that fabric so much. So there definitely is on this top some, you know, pattern fabric curves, but you know, if you're not certain, usually the rule is busy fabric, simple pattern. And this is a busy pattern, you would use a simple fabric. That's generally the rule, but it doesn't mean that there's times where the rules are broken and they work and everybody's happy. But you run that risk, and that's just what the fun of sewing is we run those risks. Alright, so I've secured that into both sides. Again, I'm going to show it to you because it's starting to look more and more like a top. We're getting there. What do you think? See, it's actually anchored in at the side now. Now the problem is piece number 1, remember that's kind of the underlay portion in the bottom of the shirt. It's not anchored in anywhere. So now that's what we're going to do. Again, if you want to, you can put this on and anchor it down. But I'm going to show you what pattern points to align, so you don't really have to put it on to anchor it down. It's hard to tell those pattern points sometimes in a guide sheet, and so a lot of times we'll say put it on and adjust. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of the back, because if you pin through the back, you'll pin through all the layers. So I'm just going to lay the back up there. This portion, the part that's overlapped, the 3/8 at the side, is the first place I'm going to pin down to, and just smooth that out. Don't worry about the rest of the top. Just lay this as it would be and pin that in place. And that's the best way for that to be pinned down. What you want to make sure is that the French dart, any tip of the French dart, is buried inside there. You don't want to have the French dart sticking out anywhere along the side. So this is really easy to do. Pin this and pin this. Okay, go to the opposite side and just do the same thing. So make everything lay down flat. Don't worry about all the ruffling in the center. Just make this point smooth. See, there's the tip of my French dart. I want to make sure I'm covering that, and I want to make sure this is laying smooth underneath. And when those two come together, I'm telling you, I've made enough of these. You can't go wrong by just pinning those down. So smooth it out, pin it down. Now what I would do is, once I get these, there's 3 sections we're going to do this to. There's the right and the left, and then there's the bottom. Then with the pins on, you could go kind of try it on and see if you feel like that's the appropriate places. But because I know it is, I'm not going to worry about it. I'll wear this in a webcast down the road and then you can see it. Okay, so pin, pin, pin. That should all be smooth on the side. And that, what I'm doing is just I'm pinning the strips to the under layer. So I think when you look at this top, it seems way more complex than it is, and that's what I love about pattern making, is taking something that looks great and kind of simplifying it to where we can all wrap our head around it, do it, and make it look wonderful. Alright, so then I'm going to do the same to the bottom. I'm just going to naturally let these fall. I'm going to push this little underpiece up, because what I don't want to do, I don't want it to sag down. I want it to be smooth. So when I sew this to the bottoms, I'm just going to make this all smooth underneath and pin it in place. If there's any doubt as to where anything goes, push the bottom layer up to smooth that out. And then again, you can always try it on to make sure it's right. If you need this top, when you're cutting it out and you need more circumference at the hip, close up the French dart. Once you close up the French dart, you'll get a straight side seam, and then you can just make the side seam go to a different size. It's really, once you close up that French dart, you can say, oh, that's just a regular side seam. The French dart kind of is a little bit scary because it makes it look you know, real jagged and a little confusing, but once you close the dart up, you'll see it goes really straight. Alright, and then I'm just going to close this point, because your stitching is going to go up here, you're going to pivot, and you want to pivot basically in the center, and then you're going to come back down the other side. Alright, so this is where the contrasting thread is going to really be offensive here. Okay. And I'm going to sew those 3 sections. I'm going to do what's called an edge stitch, and I'm just going to sew right on the edge. This is a good question time. Questions? I leave my needle down, I pivot, and continue on. And again, you're just stitching right on the folded edge. I'm stitching into the side seam of the garment, so I don't need to do any back stitching. Then I'm going to come over here and do the other side. Doesn't matter where you start, as long as you sew into the garment, pivot, and then go to the other direction. And as soon as I hit that other strip, that's when I pivot. A lady asked how to do FBA. That's a full bust adjustment. Pardon? Yeah, you wouldn't. We have in the top cup sizing. We have B, C, and D cups. So cup sizing on patterns on blouses is not the same as cup sizing on bras. So a D cup is much fuller than a D cup bra. So use the D cup, and I think you'll find you don't need any other adjustment over that. We sometimes think we need more, just simply because we think it's the same as bra cup sizing. I'm doing the bottom now, you guys, and again I'm edge stitching. I'm right on the edge of the fold. What do you generally have on while you sew? Music, film, radio? All of the above? Or, you know, that's a really good question. Just happy. Just sometimes I'm just having conversations with my sons, or sometimes I'm watching a movie, sometimes nothing, sometimes I just want my head. Just different stuff, just depends. But I love to sew, and I love my room, so it's all happy. It's a Saturday afternoon, and we get to sew, so life is good. Make it a happy place. Alright, so we're done with this. Now as I hold it up, you'll actually see it is a top now. It's each of those steps had it more and more become, hey, it's a top, it's a top, it's a top. So we'll hold it up again, and hopefully you can actually see that it's becoming a top. Look at that. And that's where you can see that contrasting stitching is really offensive now. I'm thinking for sure you can see it now. Alright? So we're good, and what we're going to do now is we're going to put on the sleeves. You can manipulate these in the front to just kind of, you know, position them so they go through or like you want. You have some room in there because where those notches were, you have a little bit of room of manipulation. So you can manipulate them a little bit up or down. You can, you know, kind of spread the gathers a little more evenly than what they are, but they'll stay right there. They won't move. You can't see through them. If you can, there's a piece behind there, so it's all good and it's all protected. Alright, so I think we're at sleeve time, yes? Alright, we're on sleeves, which is the very last column. We've covered everything except sleeves. And again, I do, when I do sleeves, I fold them in half. And right now they're folded in half, right sides together. So then I just unfold one, and I put a pin on the right side, so I've marked right side, and my pin's also at the top, which would be the shoulder seam. So I'm kind of doing two things at one time, which saves a little bit of time. I haven't ironed to this point, have I? But I haven't needed to. I will have to iron. I was thinking I will have to iron with the sleeve. So I really haven't needed to iron to this point, so I don't think I'm leaving anything out. I've pushed the seams down so that you know, when I sewed them the right way. I pushed these seams to the center again, so when I sewed them the right way. But there wasn't any seams going over another that was a problem. When I set the sleeve in, you have to iron the sleeve before you close up the side. Do you recommend making a muslin on everything? Not on everything. Not on everything, but if you're not sure, then yeah, make a muslin. If you're sure, don't make a muslin. A muslin is for not being sure. Is that fair? Okay, so I'm doing exactly like the guide sheet is doing. I've got the sleeve on the bottom. If I'm not sure of something, yes, I'll do a muslin. Once I feel certain that the LCD is all correct, then you don't need to do the muslin. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm aligning this pin to the shoulder seam. And so I'm simply going, I've got the sleeve on the bottom. So the feed dogs are going to help me ease that in a little bit. This is not a hard thing to do by any means. Just keep your edges even. And so when you sew your 3/8, because with a sleeve you've got a convex and concave seams. And if you don't line up the edges, one can get quickly longer than the other and have your sleeve just not fit correctly. So be sure of that. If I were doing this on the serger, I would serge in the sleeve. I would not do it on a sewing machine, but you get the same results, so it doesn't make any difference. You can't tell from the outside whether it's been serged or stitched. Can we see the back of the front? Yes. Hold on. What's the other question? When you have fitted Jeannie on many of the Fit to Stitch episodes, she always needs more darting due to a larger cup side. How would you adjust this top for her? Well, when you say she didn't always, because on a knit top she didn't. In fact, most of the time we don't do a knit top because she doesn't need any adjustment, and that's kind of boring to say, hey, she doesn't need any adjustment. So we've adjusted for a larger cup size if she's done a woven top, but on a knit top the D cup works for her. So don't anticipate that it's not going to work. Actually make sure it doesn't work. There's my sleeve set in. There's my pin. How would you adjust this top? Yeah, you wouldn't have to. You're not going to have an issue with it. In this particular top there's a French dart, and the French dart might need to be made bigger, but because the French dart is under the portion where the gathers are, where the strips are going to cover anything that's an issue anyway. So this is a really easy top to fit, and it's a, you know, I mean, I might go through and do 195 first, but, you know, totally your call, you guys. Let me show you the inside of the top. Exactly what is the name of your fabric you are using? I can't remember if you said it's on your website. Yes, it's on the website. I had the number. I'm sorry, you guys. I should have done this. Is it hot pink? Say that, Brett? Hot pink what? No, go to like the 3rd or 4th page. We'll find it. Hang on. If you're using... Yeah, what number is that? Hot pink, 100% cotton knit. What page is it on? Page number 3, bottom right-hand corner. Hot pink. 948 is the fabric number. If you're using a 60-inch wide fabric and a small size top, how many yards do you need? I cut 2 because you can't get it out of 1. There's too many pieces out of 1. Alright, here's the inside of the top. This is the part that she was talking about in the beginning when she said, will it just hang down? Yes, it will. It'll just hang down. When it's on your body, it'll pull up like this because the tension of coming this across will pull this up. But here's the bottom V, here's the side V's, there's all the crossing, there's your French darts. Okay? Okay. Alright, so now we've got one sleeve in. I'm going to do the other sleeve, if everybody's okay with that. And then I'm going to press, because the shoulder seams are going to the back. When I do a sleeve, I make sure that is. I did cut 3/4 sleeves just because in this top, because of the color, I wanted it to have a more kind of summery feel. So again, I'm just starting here. I put a pin in the middle to make sure it comes in at the shoulder seam. That pin at the shoulder seam is just kind of a guiding point to make sure that you're in the ballpark. You don't want that sleeve to be off, or else it won't give you the right mobility you need. So my sleeve is on the bottom, and I've got my shoulder seam aligned to my pin. And this, now I'm going to go to the ironing board. Right sides together. On a knit top, we're going to press the seams into the body of the garment. On a jacket, they go out. On a blouse or a knit top, they go in. Alright, so I've got my ironing board here. Let's iron. So what I do when I put the sleeve on, I kind of use the end of my boards. Hang on just a second, we'll get it on camera. And I press that sleeve out. This shoulder seam is going back. This sleeve, this seam right here is going in. But they've all been pressed that way because when I did it I was careful to have it go that way. And then the sleeve is going into the garment. So I start on the wrong side by actually pressing it that way. Just kind of slowly do it around. And just your iron there for a second so it'll go the way you want it to go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn it over and I'm going to pull it from the ironing board down so that the seams have to go into the garment, and then I'm going to put my iron right on top of it so it actually doesn't have a choice. It kind of cements it going into the garment. You kind of use the weight of the garment to pull it out. So to put it right on the edge, pull it out, iron it down. Okay? How long is your 3/4 sleeve? Ask question again, Rose. 3/4 is halfway between the elbow and the wrist. Thank you. Okay, and then I'm going to do the other one same way. I've got the sleeve here. I'm going to push all those seam allowances out. And again, I kind of use the weight of the garment to go over the end of the board. And so you can see that it's kind of pushing it out. And then as you press, you're just kind of finishing it there. You're kind of making sure it stays. And then when you turn it over, I always iron it on the right side just to make sure it stays. And I always iron the sleeves before I do the side seams because if you don't, it just, I mean, it really looks bad. But typically when I'm sewing a knit top, I really don't iron it until until the very end because I know which way the seams are going and I make sure the seams are all going the right way. I don't know that there's really anything to press on the front. I've already pressed the shoulder seams. Can press the back neck edge. We'll do that to make it look nice. I mean, it really, except for my black thread, it looks really good. Okay, there we go. We've got this almost ready top. And now we're going to come back and we're going to sew from the hem of the sleeves to the hem of the garment. Do you prep work on the fabric, pre-wash, etc.? I do pre-wash, and I did pre-wash it. I threw it in the washer, threw it in the dryer, and because I do that, because after that I figure I never have to worry about it again. From then on in, it gets thrown in the washer and thrown in the dryer. So yeah, I do believe in prep work because I don't want to have to, I mean, you know, I don't want to have to deal with it. It's really easy ahead of time. It's really a lot more difficult if you wait till after. Peggy, how much did you lengthen the top you are wearing now that we can see it on you? I added 6 inches to the bottom. But that 6 inches is for me. It wouldn't necessarily be for you. I knew where the top came and I knew where I wanted the new one to be, so I knew 6 inches was the right answer. After you finish the top, can we take some still pictures so we can see the contrast stitching, and can you model it so we can see how it should look? I guess you could post the pictures on Facebook. I'm not going to model it because I'm not going to change, okay? But we can take pictures, yes. I don't mind putting it on in a later webcast, but I'm not going to like take off all my clothes and redo them, okay? Alright, so when I'm doing the underarm seam, I want to make sure it matches, and so I use that kind of as an alignment point. And then once I hit that underarm seam, and I know it does, then I go to the bottom of the garment and I kind of pull it together to make sure the side seam is correct. And then I want to make sure all the threads, any basting I've done is coming out the side so that when I finish it will look nice and not have threads going everywhere. If you have time, can you show us how you said you lengthen the top using the French curve? Yes. I don't think I have the pattern up here though, you guys. I left the pattern. It's in my cutting room. Love your iron. What brand, make, and model is it? It's a Rowenta DG 5030. And I love my iron. I will say I love my iron. DG, D as in David, G as in George, DG 5030. 5030, yeah. Alright, then I'm just doing the other side. Start at the hem of the sleeve. And again, if I were serging, I would have serged the end of the sleeve. I always serge the end, you know, before you hem it. If I'm going to hem it, there's times I actually leave the sleeves raw. I kind of like that look. But you can see in the one I have on, I serged the hem here and then turned it under. Hey Brett, there's the actual pattern. I think it's on the cutting table. Hang on, I'll show you on the thing. Is there a particular reason why you press the seams toward the garment in blouses? I have always pressed them toward the sleeve in every garment I've made. I'm learning here. Is there a reason? If you notice in men's shirtings sometimes will top stitch around the armhole, and that top stitching is on the body of the garment, not in the sleeve, because it's to anchor down that seam. The seam can't go into the sleeve because the sleeve's starting to get smaller. The body is staying the same size, so you couldn't go the other way without it rippling. So if you've done it that way, you must have rippling when you go that way. The only time you do it that way is when you're doing a jacket and you've got a shoulder pad and it's a totally different situation. But it's got to go into the body because otherwise it won't lay flat. So that's just off the top of my head. We're not top stitching here, but it still has to go into the body. If you start noticing ready to wear, you see it goes into the body, not the sleeve. Peggy, on the top you have on, there is a stripe to it. Yes. Do you have the pieces down the front going the same way as the top or with the stretch of the knit? The top I have on is a two-way stretch. So it was very easy to have the top, you know, I had to refold the fabric because, oh, perfect. Thank you, Brett. I had to refold the fabric to get all the stripes going this way, but it had stretched both directions, so it didn't make a difference. So I think we're finished. Other than the hems, I think we're finished. And I'm going to just ask for that hanger, maybe, just right there, behind there. I'm going to just put this on a hanger so you guys can see, and we'll answer any questions you have, and we'll call it a day. Isn't this exciting? This is so exciting, you guys. Look at our new top. I don't have the bottom done, so you know, you wait whenever on something like this. I'll always sew the bottom because the bottom, I'll hem the bottom because the bottom hem will give weight to the garment, and so it'll pull this down nicely to where there's weight there. That's the front, that's the back, and a little cute 3/4 sleeve. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so let's answer that one question about the back. This is my back, and this is my curve. Alright, so if I'm going to add 6 inches of length, basically I know on my patterns about where my waist is, so I'll come out, I'll measure my hips, I know how wide it needs to be because I'll divide each piece by 4. So let's say if the piece needs to be at least 11 inches, and if it's only 9 inches, then I'll need to add an inch on, or 2 inches on each piece. So I'll pull it out the 2 inches that it needs to be, and then I'll take the French curve like this and go back into the waist up in here. So when I'm adding, that's how I use the French curve to add along the side seam. Can they see that, you think? Yeah, somewhat. I think you can get it from my description, yeah. Okay, can this garment be made with a fabric that has just one-way stretch? I don't know. I don't know. I've never tried it. You know, if you want to do it, you're going to have to try it. I haven't tried it because it needs stretch vertically and it needs stretch going around. It needs stretch in both directions. I think that if you didn't, it might gap at the neck edge if we didn't have that stretch going in both directions. If you were to serge the end of the sleeve and turn under, do you have to add that length to the pattern? No, it's already added to the pattern. All the seam allowances are already added to the pattern. Just follow the guide, and everything that's in the guide we included. If you go to make changes, you'll have to make those changes. But we included everything that's there. We did great. You guys ready? Is it a wrap? We'll give a few minutes to answer up questions, and then we are off. Oh, you like my top? I love this, you guys. I'm telling you, we got it in several different colors. I love this fabric. It feels like cotton. It's wonderful. And then again, I just cut it longer because I had these jean leggings that I wanted to wear it with. So I wanted it to be long enough to come over my top. And I absolutely love it. Like I said, I just did it yesterday because I wanted to kind of test out to make sure I knew what I was doing. And it just went together really well. Went together really nicely. So this is going to look like the exact same thing. It's just a matter of doing it the next day. So now I have another new top. And you recognize by now I'm clearly over my 25 pieces. Yeah, it's your fault. Okay, it's not my fault anymore. It's your fault. Yeah, that's right. When you only that's a good point. When you only have 25 garments, you don't wear threads that are the wrong color on your garments. You have to match those. So I actually probably don't have to take the whole thing apart. I could just take the top stitching apart. So, you know, if I have it on somewhere and you see me, you might have to look inside or let me show you inside to see if I took it apart or not. That will be my secret. All right, everyone. Would it look great as a dress? Absolutely it would look great as a dress. Absolutely it would. It's an adorable little dress. And you don't have to make it tight. It doesn't have to be tight at all. You can add flare at the bottom. You could do all kinds of fun stuff to the bottom. So yeah, I think it's a great dress. I actually saw it as a dress. I did it as a top because I think more people would gravitate to it as a top, but it's been done both ways. It's a very popular little top. Nicky's top, just terrific. So hopefully this will give you the confidence to go through and do it. We really want to say thank you for being here. We appreciate all the donations, all the time. To my guys behind the scenes, they're giving up their time on this day, you know, and it's much appreciated. It truly is. So we'll see you in a couple weeks. We won't have a webcast on Monday night because that's Labor Day. This coming Monday is Labor Day? No, the following. We just had a webcast. That's right. So this Monday would be our bye. Then we have Labor Day. And then we'll see you the following week. We'll be here. And our new patterns, I'm telling you, we're going to tease you. We're going to put them up. We don't have them back yet to sell, but we're going to put them up and tease you so that you can see them. They're really fun. They're so much fun. Anyway, all right, so happy sewing from Silhouette Patterns. We'll see you not before Labor Day. Don't forget, just kind of open that little pocketbook just a little bit and give to our Dallas officers. Everything's going to Dallas officers, so we really want to make a contribution to them. We really want their families to know how sorry we are for their loss. And we're going to, this particular case, we're going to do it in monetary form. Anyway, again, thanks for being here. Happy sewing, and we'll see you in a little bit. All right, bye.